I am the paid and social media director for LHH. And so my role is really designed at LHH to help our brand and our people, who are our most important brand asset, to elevate themselves and elevate our brand using social media and media, so that we can engage with audiences that are critically important to our business. And so I do a lot of work. I'm actually an alum of LinkedIn. I was there for 6 years before I worked at LHH. And so have some experience of working within the LHH business as a social media leader, but also have the background in LinkedIn and have worked with lots of leaders and leadership teams to help our leaders internally, but also leaders externally, to really elevate themselves using social media. So today's session is going to really focus on how you build your presence on LinkedIn. And this is something that you can take with you as a framework that you can use yourselves. But this is something you may want to impart on your teams internally. So hopefully there'll be some useful takeaways from this session. But we also have some materials that we'd like to send you after this session, which are a little bit more tactical, a little bit more action oriented. So we will give you some materials after this that will help you when it comes to applying this knowledge into a really practical manner using LinkedIn. We are focusing on LinkedIn here because we recognize that LinkedIn is the place that you want to build your professional profile. There are other platforms, of course, and those platforms are equally important, but LinkedIn is the place that people come to engage with businesses, with professionals, with professional content, and it's a place that you can really build your presence, so that from the point of view of engaging an audience that's really relevant to your business and you as a professional, in the mindset that's relevant to them, you really have an optimal opportunity to get in front of them with the right sorts of messages. So we're just going to start off really thinking about brand and personal brand. And thinking about what it means. So brand is considered typically a marketing thing, but actually brand is something that exists. Your brand, your personal brand is something that exists, whether or not you realize it. It's really what people are saying about you when you are not in the room. It's the sort of things that they would say if somebody was asking an opinion of you, or somebody had met you and another person had not. It's the sorts of things, the sorts of attributes that they would associate with you as a person. And so you have an opportunity really to craft that. And people who have built really strong personal brands do that with a huge amount of intention. So they think about, what does their brand look like? What does their brand look like in the future, with some intent behind it and some effort? And then they start to bridge the gap and start to reinforce key messages over time that allow them to be known for certain things. And so it's exactly the same with companies. So it's the same premise. It's just that you as a personal brand have the opportunity to craft that for you yourself. And what we'll talk about is kind of how you start doing that and some of the more practical applications of that using LinkedIn. So I do love this quote from Jeff Bezos. I think it really does capture what we are talking about here today. So just thinking about, your own personal brand, who the audiences that you want to engage are, and how you want those audiences not only to think about you, but to feel about you when you are not around, is a really powerful way to start your journey. You will have a brand that people associate with you. And it may be that you have both a kind of professional but also personal elements to your brand. And it's important to think about yourself as a whole person, not just one thing. So just thinking about, the crossover between professional and personal are really important. So as an example, one of our very senior leaders, has a huge interest in sport. He is a professional coach. He works with sports teams. He has played sports in his past life. And that's a really important element of what makes him unique. And of course, there are things that differentiate us from others. There are lots of things that are similar to others, but really it's about finding the thing that's more unique to you, more different to other people, to you, and bringing that to the fore, and then fertilizing that with who you are as a professional person. And actually for this particular leader, he feels really passionate about the crossover in terms of leadership, team building, resilience, that really brings leadership to life as an area of our business that we focus on, and brings sport into that as a way of talking about it in an interesting way, in a really connecting and personal way. So why is it important? Why should you think about building your brand? Well, it's good for business. It's good for growing your business. It's good for hiring people and positioning yourself as an employer of choice. And it's also really important as you think about, how you want to navigate your own career. Um, Positioning yourself as an authority is something that can be quite time consuming and quite hard. But I think the thing that you need to really think about is, what do I want to be known for, and committing yourself to that one or two things that you want to be known for. I had a really interesting colleague who taught me a lot about thought leadership when I was at LinkedIn, and she talked about this idea of consistency over time, really defining what you want to be known for and having a huge commitment to that over a long period of time. And then people start to associate that one thing with you, or those two things with you. So really thinking about what those things are is critical as a starting point. There's also an expectation that business leaders, HR leaders, talent leaders are visible and accessible. And actually, we live in a world where that can sometimes be difficult. And places like LinkedIn provide you with that opportunity to speak to a larger audience at scale in a way that can be really powerful and compelling. So it's a place where people expect leaders to show up and have an opinion on what's going on, have their finger on the pulse. There's also, I think, an expectation that leaders elevate and celebrate the people within their business. So that's something that I think is a huge opportunity. And thinking about LinkedIn as a platform today, I'm sure that those of you that are active on LinkedIn would have noticed the shifting landscape and dynamic of LinkedIn. It used to be a place originally that people went to network, of course, and then find jobs. Then it became a content platform where you came to consume content, professional content. It's become a place where creators now exist. And creators are people who are bringing their own perspectives, their own unique insights to their audience, thinking about who it is that they want to influence and how can they continually provide value at moments that matter. And so even the LinkedIn platform is evolving to provide an opportunity for an audience to deliver that kind of message through the new video feed. If you are somebody who's really happy to be in front of a camera, I would thoroughly recommend that to be a format that you consider. But thinking about what is it that really sort of stands true to your audience, that's really helpful to your audience, that you may want to share. Brands do this all the time. So, for example, Netflix, I remember when I was back at my LinkedIn days, Netflix, when we were looking at their talent brand, had a big commitment to hiring exceptional talent. And in order to make the hiring process easier for them and easier for their audience, they would talk about what they're looking for, and also they would explain, using every touch point of their employer brand and their talent brand, what they're not looking for, what they won't be hiring, who they wouldn't want to engage in an interview, so that there was this clear kind of agreement between talent and the business that around what they will and what they won't really entertain in terms of talent for their business. So you can start thinking about that. I used to work with one of the Formula One teams when I was at LinkedIn as well, and the CEO was inundated with people reaching out to her, asking for her time because they were interested in working for the F1 team. It got to the stage where it was so time consuming because she had a commitment to always wanting to respond to and engage with the audience. It got so time consuming that actually we had to work on how she used her LinkedIn profile to tell messages. And so we crafted a message with her that helped her audience to understand, although she really appreciates any kind of outreach, she can't possibly respond to everybody because there is such a heightened interest in working for that business. And so she gave insights and perspectives in terms of what they're looking for when they're hiring people, what they're not looking for, and she gave them a call to action. This is the place you can go if you want to apply for our jobs. Here is the right place for you. Please go and apply there, and our team would love to hear from you. So thinking about your profile and the service, the opportunity that it serves and the purpose that it serves, really thinking about who is your audience, What are they continually asking for? What unique perspectives do you have? How can you help them at moments that matter? How can you provide them with insights and resources and the things that are going to really help them so that you build a really great reputation for yourself and for your business? Is a really powerful way to think about your profile. It's not just about portraying an exceptional brand message for your business and for yourself, but it's actually being really helpful and providing value. I'm sure everybody here would have heard of Adam Grant, who is somebody that I follow quite closely on LinkedIn. And there was a really great video where Adam Grant was talking about the distinction between being active on social media and doing it well, and being active on social media and doing it in a way that feels like it's sort of disconnected and a bit self-serving. And what he talked about was this idea of idea promotion. It's not about self-promotion, it's about idea promotion. If you are not giving your audience the ideas and the insights you have in your mind when they could be helping someone, and you have no idea sometimes how important some of the insights that you have are, you are doing them a disservice. And so thinking about that, thinking about the value that you've got to bring that's unique, could be really helpful. And your people are one of the really important stakeholders for this. So I use my LinkedIn profile really as a place for our internal audience to go and find resources. So I've created some resources, very welcome to use them, on how do you show up on LinkedIn. So how do you write a great post? How do you build a great profile? What are the things that you can think about? Commenting strategy, which is a very underrated part of the platform that you can use if you're starting your journey on how to engage on LinkedIn. And so I've given those, and that's where I direct everyone to. I can't possibly have a one-on-one conversation with every single employee that we have, but I encourage people to go and use my LinkedIn profile as a place to learn, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Why is it important to build a brand? And how do we build it? So it's a reflection of who you are, it's your reputation. And you can either let that reputation happen, or you can be in control of what that reputation looks like. So it's actually really thinking about, like, the first point is, what does your personal brand look like today? And a really good exercise is to actually go around to people that you trust in your professional and personal network and say, what are the 3 things you would say about me? What is it that what words would you use to describe me? There was a really interesting analysis that I did of a very well-known CEO. It's Mary Barra, who's the chair of General Motors in the US. And I really like Mary Barra. She's a sort of she is a symbol of the brand. Like, she lives and breathes that brand. Michigan is kind of central to her heart, where General Motors was started. And when I started to do some analysis of her articles and sort of reading through her posts, I started to notice there were 3 words that were standing out. And the 3 words kept coming up. And I'm sure that she has copywriters and ghostwriters that help her to construct her content. But it was really interesting because I started to kind of see her through that lens. Like, there are 3 things I just kept taking away from every piece of writing that was associated with her brand. I think is a very clever thing to do. And it may be that you want to just keep bringing certain things up that you tie yourself to, but using your own unique perspective. It's very hard to be truly unique. Some people are. Sam Altman, who set up, ChatGPT and the business behind that, has a unique perspective. It truly is unique. He is innovating, but it's very hard to be that person. But you can have a unique perspective or lens that you look at themes and topics through. It may be something that you're really passionate about, something that you have a true passion that runs through everything that you do. And it may be that you, like our leader with the sports interest, has kind of brought that through everything that he talks about, not all the time, but quite often. Maybe there's something outside of work that is a real passion area for you that you want to weave in. So investing in your personal brand is actually really important, and it's amazing what it can do. So we look at this as a business. We think about, what impact does this have? It's really tangible for sellers. When you're a social seller, when you're going out there, when you're engaging on social media, you're going onto LinkedIn every day, you've got a commitment and a habit, and you're going out there, engaging with audiences, wishing people happy birthday, bringing them truly unique insights, going to them when there's something really unique that you want to share with them. We see that there is a tangible impact on financial performance. So that's very easy. Sometimes it's a bit harder if you're not in a commercial role, but actually you start to feel it and you start to see it. the connections that you build, the comments that you get, the people reaching out to you out of nowhere who actually want to have a conversation with you because they've seen something of value that you bring to them. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind. There is a huge amount of value to doing this, but sometimes it's not there until you're doing it and you're taking this action. So how can you build your personal brand? I want to keep this super simple. I want to keep it super simple and something that's really actionable for you to take away. So there is a lot more to building a brand, but I think this is a nice, simple exercise. The first thing is assess. Name 3 words to describe you. It's an exercise you can do that really helps to, the more market research we do, the better. Ask people, get the feedback, feedback from people internally. I'm sure a lot of you would be doing 360 feedback or getting insights from across your business. You can use that as well. It can be really insightful and helpful. Step 2 is defining. What do you want to be known for? We will talk about audience in a moment, but what is it that you want to be known for? For me, I want to be known as a subject matter expert. It's really important to me that I know my expertise. I'm passionate about the business. I'm passionate about what we do. The thing I want people to come to me for is my expertise in what I do professionally. And so the content that I share, the engagements that I have, the people that I'm building my network with, that should all come back to what is it that I want to be known for and how I want to define myself in my professional life. And again, it might just be simple 3 words. What 3 words do I want? Or is it a mission statement? Or is it something that you have really clearly defined in your head? And then the next step is to actually build that. And so it's about building your profile, your LinkedIn profile. It's about building content. It's about engaging people, building your network. It's about sharing content, creating that value exchange, that idea exchange rather than kind of self-promotion. To start with, who is your audience? For a lot of us, it will be our own internal employees that we want to influence. We want to elevate them. We want to inform them. We want to build great cultures. We want to really think about the focus and the priority. Who is it that you want to engage? For me, it's an internal audience for absolute certain, but I also have an external audience that I want to engage who I really am exchanging value with. I use LinkedIn to get so much personal development in terms of accessing content through people sharing podcasts, through insightful posts, people linking to different publications that are relevant to me. So for me, it's 2. I have 2 very distinct audiences. And so I have to kind of practice what I preach, but I also need to gain value. It's not just a one-way street. So I need to think about who are those people I want to engage, both internal and external. And so we talked about kind of some key things that you can do. Here are 4 steps to building your presence on LinkedIn. The first thing is building a compelling and engaging profile. So once you know what it is you want to be known for, you know who it is you want to engage, it's always much easier to speak to 1 or 2 audiences than it is just being very generic and general. You've noticed that if you've ever been in a position where you're job hunting, all of a sudden you have to change your profile, your LinkedIn profile, to appeal to your recruiter audience or a hiring manager audience. Well, thinking about the role that you're in today, who is the audience that you want to influence and engage? And then think about customizing your profile in accordance with that. And of course, we have to, just like you have multiple CVs and multiple covering letters if you're applying for a job, your profile should be representative of your audience today. And I would definitely say I would customize mine in accordance with the business that I'm in. So I want to really speak to the fact that I work for LHH. I want to speak to the fact that I'm helping to elevate our business. And I sort of want to engage my audience in giving kind of feedback as well, so that when we're thinking about how we portray ourselves using paid media and social media, I need to really kind of encourage our audience to give us feedback to make sure that we're on point. So I think just thinking about the purpose. So the way that you craft your profile is a great summary. And we talked about here about personal and professional. And I think there is definitely an opportunity for both, but I think it's about layering them on each other. So for me, I'm a mum of 2. I have a very busy life. Part of who I am, part of my brand is that I'm a very committed mother. So I'm unapologetic in that as a person. And actually, that can be a really connecting sort of point of who I am. But first and foremost, my expertise on LinkedIn, because it is a professional environment, is where I would really focus my messaging. Include your relevant experience. And we talked about areas of passion. There's a great LinkedIn Learning course on sort of executive presence, and they talk on there about like the quadrants, the four corners of executive presence. And after this, I can share the LinkedIn Learning course if you're interested. But he talks about, you know, poise and you know, the power of like positioning yourself with confidence. But he talked about the most fundamental thing, the most connecting thing being the passion that you have. Because when someone speaks about something they're passionate about, whether it's in person, they write about it, you know, they're recorded on video, they're engaging with an audience internally. When it's something they're passionate about, they light up. You feel it. Like it's a really connecting, powerful way to engage with people when you're talking about something that you truly believe in. It's not just something you know about, but you believe in it. And so there is something I think that's so powerful about being passionate about something that's important to you. And you know, I remember back long time ago when I started my career as a teacher, we used to talk when I was training about the power of connecting with students. So yeah, of course, you talk about school, you talk about all the things that are relevant to your role as a teacher, but especially when you've got a difficult person you've got to connect with, talk about, you know, something that's really relevant to them. So what are they doing at home? What's really interesting? What sports are they playing? So I think it's true through life. Like those things are the things that you kind of have a really meaningful conversation when it's something that you have a shared interest in. There is a place on your LinkedIn profile that people don't really realize is there called the featured section. And that's where I would use for sharing insights, thought leadership, any kind of resources, guides, anything else that is helpful. So that's something that you may want to switch on if you haven't done that already. So really thinking about, you know, who do you really respect? I think it's a really great place to go and start. There's somebody called Lena Nair, who's now the CEO for Chanel, the luxury brand. She's also previously the CHRO of Unilever, and I just love what she does. I love her brand. She's been a bit less active in more recent times since she's been at Chanel, but I really love how vulnerable she is and how accessible she is. And like last week when the election happened, that she shared a post about compassionate leadership, and I thought actually it was really kind of nice to hear that in a moment that was very contentious and there was a lot of tension in the air, and that existed on LinkedIn as much as it did, you know, on the news. And so she shared that post. I'm sure there was some intent behind it, but it was just, it felt like, yeah, actually, I really needed to hear this. I needed to hear from someone that I respect, you know, sort of sharing something that made me feel connected and a little bit more optimized and had a little bit more positivity in it. Um, you may or may not sort of feel concerned about being inundated with connections. I've spoken to lots of executives, and many of whom have said, I just can't keep up with people trying to connect with me. I just get very frustrated with using LinkedIn because I get so many connection requests, I can't even use it. And actually, there's a way using your communication preferences to switch your settings on your LinkedIn profile so that rather than people having the button that says connect, it can say follow. And the distinction between following someone and connecting with someone on LinkedIn is that if you follow them, then what you're going to be doing is you're not a connection of them, you're not in their network, but what you are is a follower of their content. So, for example, Richard Branson, never going to accept my connection request. But what I can do is I can follow him. And then in my newsfeed, when I go there to consume content, I can see if Richard Branson has shared a post, I can see that content. So it becomes a place that I can just engage with what he's saying. And this is something that a lot of our salespeople do for very senior executives in businesses that they want to engage. They just go and follow their executive. They use Sales Navigator, but they would also use the LinkedIn newsfeed. And it just means that you have an opportunity to engage with that content, but equally you can set that on your LinkedIn profile. So there is a little link in this slide where you can go and click on there and you can update your communication preferences to make sure that you're keeping the distinction between following you and connecting with you very separate. And the more connection requests that you have that are not adding value to you, the more likelihood there would be to getting benefit from having the follow button. lots of people have asked me in the past, what about building my network? Well, it's up to you. What I would say is that for me, the value exchange is the most important thing on LinkedIn. So I want to connect with people who have value that I can bring to them and value that they can bring to me. So I would say that connect with people if that's important to you. If you go onto LinkedIn and you really use the newsfeed and you really want to learn, that have that value that you can gain from them. If actually, like one of our executives, he wants a critical mass, he's a very influential leader in our business. He needs to have a big following. It gives him credibility. He uses LinkedIn in quite a different way to the way that I use it. Then he's very happy to have people follow him. But he's also quite happy to have a big connection, big people connecting to him, having a big network. So it really depends on what's important to you and how you use LinkedIn. I would say for me, it's about quality over quantity. So I'd rather have a collective of people that I really get value from. When they show up on my newsfeed, I don't think, oh, I really wish I hadn't seen this. There is a way to unfollow people that you're connected to, just to tell you that. So if you have someone, for example, that's showing up on your newsfeed, they're sharing content you're not really that interested in, it's kind of cluttering your newsfeed, they're quite regular posters, you can go and unfollow them, but it means that you're still connected. So you still have them in your network, but you won't consume that content. I do show you here the featured section, which is something that you can switch on. And the featured section is where you can add rich media. So rich media comes in the form of a document, a link to any URL that you want. It could be an image, it could be a certificate. So this is the place that you can go and add content that may be representative of any kinds of accolades that you have achieved. People use this. So Richard Branson uses this to showcase his LinkedIn newsletter. So this is a place where you could go and add something that you want people to take as an action. So it doesn't just have to be a kind of showcase. It could be something that you want people to do next, which could be subscribe to your newsletter. Or read an article that you have shared. Some people use this to just highlight posts that have performed particularly well. So it could be something that you want to do there. Okay. I believe there's some chat going. I'm just going to keep going because I'm mindful of the time and I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to ask questions in person at the end, but please keep them coming. Licenses and certifications, any certificates or licenses that you have accumulated, do add them here. It can be a really good point of conversation, but it also gives you that credibility, just as the recommendations do in your profile. So having recommendations is like having a reference. It's a really powerful way of kind of getting a kind of seal of approval from someone who you respect and know. And that's actually really easy on LinkedIn because you can actually even provide them with some verbiage that they might want to use as their recommendation. And this is where the settings are. So you can go in there and just update your communications. So if you go to settings, you'll see your little picture at the top of the LinkedIn interface. You see a little tiny photograph of yourself. If you click on that, go to your settings, you can go in there and change your communication settings. So here is the featured section. So, I mean, I tell you what, we could go live. Okay, so this is my LinkedIn profile. I'm just going to click down. And so this is the featured section here, which I've added to my profile. If I want to add anything here, you can add a post, add a newsletter, add an article, add a link, or add media, which would be a video or a photograph, or you can even spotlight something within your own LinkedIn profile. So it's really helpful because it gives your audience that place to go and consume content from you. And you have the place then to have content that you've created or content that you've got from another source. And then you have a place to create a little message as well so that people understand what it is that they are looking at. So that's the featured section. If you're wondering, how do I set this up? So can you see here, just under my name and my title, it says add profile section. And in the recommended section, you've got, if you scroll down, go to add featured, that's where you'd be able to add your featured section. So that's just how you turn it on. As soon as you've added that, it will show up on your LinkedIn profile, but it won't be visible to your audience until you started populating with content. And you can have as many pieces in there as you want. There's really no limitation, and you can scroll through. It becomes like a carousel to scroll through once you start building more than 3 pieces, because 3 pieces show up. I would update the content quite regularly. So there'll be things that are relevant for now, but they won't be relevant in the future. So really think about keeping your profile fresh and clean, and giving people things that are really helpful during moments that are, really relevant. Um, if you are struggling in terms of kind of writing your own captions that are associated with that, there are lots of great AI tools that you can use. I'm a big believer in using AI to help me to refine copy that I may have written myself. So on my LinkedIn profile, even on your LinkedIn profile, when you write your about section, it has an AI capability inbuilt that allows you to then use AI to update it and optimize it based on what the AI capability knows about the LinkedIn algorithm. And so it will optimize your copy. But there are lots of great tools. We're not here to recommend any particular tools, but there are many that certainly you can use to enhance your copy. I would always say that augmenting your copy. So what I mean by that is write copy, use AI to perhaps optimize it. And you can tell using a prompt AI to optimize it for a certain use. So LinkedIn profile about section. But then I would always go and customize it and kind of make sure that you've got your own personal brand and your own imprint on it, rather than just relying on AI to write everything. Because quite frankly, it becomes quite evident that it's AI. So it's definitely advisable to make sure that, thinking about your brand, thinking about the things that make you unique, talking as a person, not just as a sort of almost like a resume where you're sort of fact providing, you're sort of just putting down lots of facts. You can speak using copy and text in a way that people would expect to speak to you and hear your voice. The about section. So it's actually a really great place to engage your audience. I went to a great event, and Stephen Bartlett, if you know him, who is the person behind the Diary of the CEO podcast and books. He talked about the idea of telling a story, and he actually starts all of his discussions with a story. And it's the most powerful communication method that we have, because when you hear a story, our brains are wired to be empathetic, and we put ourselves immediately into that story with a character, and we feel what the character's going through. So that's why when you watch a film and you're sort of watching the heroine be subject to something stressful or shocking, you feel it and you sit on the edge of your seat. And it's true, storytelling is incredibly powerful. And so think about your about section as a place to tell a story, really short story, anecdote. Think about it as a place to showcase your passion, and also think about it as a place to engage your audience with something useful. So it could be that people need to know a little bit more about your business. Tell them what that is. There is no sort of issue with using emojis if you would like to. Of course, there are certain emojis that are probably more relevant, but if you want to break your content up using emojis, you can. In this instance, a person has used the diamond shape and the ticks and the sort of pointy hands to help the audience kind of navigate the content and consume that in a more digestible way than just having lots of copy. So up to you. Sort of make it unique to you. You can ask other people for opinions on what they think as well. Also, your experience. So you can quantify your achievements. You can talk about what you have achieved that can really help to crystallize the impact that you have. You can talk about your experience on the basis of who your audience is. So, speaking in layperson's terms about what you do, keeping it really simple and straightforward in terms of your language. There's another very good LinkedIn Learning course on how to write really compelling content. And the kind of the subject matter expert talks about this idea of kind of writing on the basis that you're talking to a child, because when you talk to a 12-year-old child, they have to pick up concepts that should be very accessible, and you have to think about a broader audience than just somebody who is a direct kind of subject matter expert alongside you. You should be thinking about the broader audience, and that's where coming back to your audience is so important. Have fun. And also you can add in your profile, you can add images or links or rich media. So there is a space on each of your experiences, your job experiences, to add in rich media as well, which is something that you may not be aware of. You also have an opportunity at the bottom of your experience section for each job to have the skills that you hold within that job. So you can add those skills so people have more of an idea of like where your areas of expertise are. Little exercise for you. This is something that I have done a lot with leaders, and where people tend to get a little bit stuck when it comes to using social media and establishing their brand is like, where do I even begin with this? And this is a really nice exercise that you can do. So there are four, these are kind of thought leadership personas. And what you start to notice when you think about these four different personas is that there are lots of examples of leaders who personify these personas. And I kind of come into this exercise a lot of the time and people are like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm going to fit into one of these. And we start talking about it. And actually, more often than not, in fact, every session I have, people always align themselves with one or other of these personas. And then in some cases, they have a primary persona and then they have a secondary persona. So the first persona is the innovator, someone who pushes the boundaries, challenges the status quo, introduces new concepts, looks to the future, brings new thinking, and may propose new solutions that haven't been thought about for critical problems. The next is the advocate, so someone who's a real champion of a cause, who uses their platform to raise awareness, inspires actions, and advocates for change. The next is an expert, so I'd say I'm probably in this category. I have in-depth research and knowledge. I pride myself on having insights that I can bring to my audience in terms of adding value to them. And then I'm a source of reliable information in my field. And then finally, the connector is someone who is more focused on curating valuable insights. They're very audience-centric. They facilitate conversations, they bring diverse perspectives, and they foster collaboration. So in order to determine which you are, we have a little exercise. This should take no more than a couple of minutes. So I'm going to ask you a question, and in the chat or privately yourself, determine whether you are A, B, C, or D for each of these. And then we will have a little kind of result at the end. So what motivates you to share your knowledge with others? A, is it to establish myself as the leading expert in my field, inspire and influence others to think differently, challenge the status quo and propose new solutions, or D, to empower others with knowledge and help them grow? You can answer that one. The second question is, what type of content do you enjoy creating the most? Some of you might not create much content, so that's okay, but we can think about what would you enjoy creating the most. A, in-depth reports, white papers, research, and this could be what kind of content you enjoy consuming. So, think about it through that lens if that's more helpful. Engaging articles, social media posts and presentations, innovative ideas, thought experiments and disruptive theories, educational tutorials, explainer videos, and practical guides. My goodness me, are those thriving as formats on LinkedIn. If you have ways to educate and you want to share that through videos, through content, that's a brilliant, brilliant way to engage your audience. Number three, when engaging with your audience, do you primarily aim to provide reliable information, spark conversation, challenge assumptions, or simplify complex topics? And then number four, your ideal outcome as a thought leader. It's quite a big ask to be a thought leader, but you can definitely be a subject matter expert, is to A, be recognized as a trusted authority, B, to shape opinions, C, to disrupt the status quo, or D, to equip others with valuable knowledge and enable their success. So hopefully you have some answer that is dominating the response there. So if you're mostly A's, you're an expert persona, and you're driven by sharing deep knowledge and establishing credibility. If you're mostly B's, you resonate with the advocate. You focus on shaping opinions and building passionate communities. If you are mostly C's, you align with the innovator, and you're fueled by challenging norms and proposing groundbreaking ideas. And if you're mostly D's, you are more of a connector, and you're passionate about guiding others and enabling their learning and growth. So feel free to drop in which persona you have defined as the one that you're leading with. You may have a primary and a secondary persona, and that's very usual. And what I would say about that is if you're thinking about kind of showing up as your persona on any kind of interaction, think about, the ratio of how much of the primary and how much of the secondary you're going to be. I would say I'm definitely more the expert, but I would say that I have an element of the connector. So I think there is the ratio is about 80% expert is how I want to show up, and then a sort of sprinkling of the connector. Here are some examples of very well-known people who fit into these categories. So the innovator, I would say Reid Hoffman, who founded LinkedIn as one of the key founders, is definitely the innovator category, but he's also a massive advocate for helping startup entrepreneurs build and grow their businesses. So he's definitely got more than one persona. Mary Barra, who I mentioned before, is the advocate. She is a woman of her business, and she, when she shows up, she is somebody who's always kind of figurehead for the business and what the business stands for. She also elevates people within her business. So it's not just about, sort of promoting the business. She actually really starts to elevate and talk about the people within the business, and that's a key part of who she is as well. The expert, so if you've heard of the Edelman Trust Barometer, you would know who Richard Edelman is. He's the president of this marketing communications firm, Edelman. He's a man of the thought leadership. So he is the sort of figurehead of the Trust Barometer. He's the person that interviews various different people who are subject matter experts around the sort of corners of the Trust Barometer findings. So very, very sort of public figure around being an expert in his field. And then Leena Nair, who I mentioned earlier, is a connector and a sort of mentor. There was a piece she did here where she actually kind of confessed to the fact on video that she had, in her career, when she'd become a mother, she came back to the business at Unilever very, very soon after having her baby. And she was called out by an employee who sort of said to her, look, if you come back and you set the pace for everybody else to have to come back early, what does that do for everybody? What if somebody wants to take all of their leave when you've just taken some of your leave? You're the model that we have to follow. And I thought it was just really interesting that she kind of talked about this fact that she made a mistake and she was holding her hands up to it, that sort of vulnerability and the connection. We are nearly over and we'll have some time for questions. Just thinking about topics that reflect the things that you want to talk about. I would say that, thinking about things that are both engaging and less common, as I said, it's really hard to have a unique topic. Everyone's talking about AI right now, everyone, including me. I have a big interest in it. I'm really interested in it through the lens of how it's going to augment with the roles within marketing and the skills that we have and allow us to be even more effective in what we do, and how the technology is going to disrupt the whole space that we're in, both in terms of the platforms, but also just generally how we get work done. So for me, it's about, what unique perspective can I have on that topic? And so it's about really thinking about, well, everyone's talking about that. How can I bring a different perspective? How do I have something that's unique to talk about? And that's really where you will have the most traction. It's something that people care about, but it's also something that people are thinking about, but perhaps not thinking about in the way that you are, and you bring that unique perspective. It's really hard to find that topic, but I would say that you all have a unique lens through which you look through life. And I think, professionally, that's really true. It may be that you talk about it through an industry lens, or you talk about it through a very specific lens within HR. So just a little tip there. It could just be that you think about, who's my audience? What do they care about? What challenges are they facing? How can I help them to solve it? And that is a brilliant way of engaging your audience, by giving them the means to overcome their challenges. So if you want to start there, I would definitely recommend it. As I said earlier, if you feel like sharing posts on LinkedIn is a real area of anxiety, start with commenting carefully and thoughtfully on others' posts. People who you really respect, people who you know well and have huge admiration for, people who are sharing some interesting thoughts on topics that you have a perspective on. Start there. I have seen that work incredibly well for some people. So a very sort of well-known leader to me used LinkedIn and its commenting space to engage with Josh Bersin, and was able to become elevated to him through comments on a post that he shared on LinkedIn. And I saw the exchange between them, and it was really quite a powerful way to get his attention. So just sharing posts can be one way of engaging, but also using the comments as another. So don't underestimate it. It's all about value. Make sure you're adding value to your audience, but also sharing perspectives that are personal to you. And Bill Gates is prolific. He's been very active on LinkedIn, and he talks about the things that he is truly personally passionate about. He has some really interesting topics that he's interested in. He talks about his relationships with other business people, and that could be a brilliant thing that you do. You start your own conversation with other leaders in your space. Publish consistently, and if you're struggling to think about a framework to use for writing a post, imagine yourself on the TED Talk stage. Think about, first of all, starting with a compelling hook. TED Talks always start with a brilliant story or something that is controversial or something that hooks you in, so you are hooked enough to want to see it to the end. And that is the difference between you watching something or listening to something or reading something all the way through and just disregarding it, because you have literally a few seconds to engage an audience on whatever you're saying, because you're interrupting their news feed. If you start showing lots of posts that don't grab their attention, don't have any value, they start just scrolling past, almost devaluing what you're saying. Introduce your idea clearly, straight after the hook. Build your logical flow and organize your content in a sequence that can help people understand it, make it simple, make it logical, support with stories and examples, and end with a conclusion which is memorable and a call to action. Tell your audience what you want them to do next. Do you want them to read an article? Do you want them to engage with you? Do you want them to think about something? Do you want them to go and do something? Think about what that thing is. And that is everything.